I really hope that's not the last we see of Higuruma. I really like this character so much. I mean, he's a character with flaws, a character that's acknowledging those flaws, somebody that is a good person that just unfortunately snapped. Like, I mean, it starts out with the idea that it seems like he was a person that wanted to see the good in people. He wanted to empathize with people, which I think that's definitely something you have to do in his field. You have to empathize in order to see sort of where those problems lie, in order to see the bigger picture of things. But it seems like based on him seeing that over and over and over again and seeing the uglier side of people over and over again, eventually it wore him down. I mean, it showed that in the previous episode, the idea that every single time he was trying to help people, you know, things didn't go the direction and everybody looked at him with like disgust, like, how dare you? I put my trust in you. You messed up or whatever. Like, he's seeing the worst in people over and over again. And again, of course, the justice system itself, that people just make up their mind. Like, the decision was already made before we got in there. They accepted this whole thing and this person got wronged. It's seeing the uglier sides of humanity over and over again until it finally broke him. And he made a massive mistake. And he did a massive crime. And he got kind of stuck in it. But after seeing Yuji's kind of correcting his mindset there. It seemed like he wanted to push back against Yuji. Like, there's a symbolist there where he's like, you know, you're seeing you're looking into the darkness, you're going to see emptiness or whatever. He's like trying to push back against Yuji because it's almost like he's trying to tell himself not to. He sees himself in Yuji. He sees himself in him and he's trying to push back, but then he accepts it. And he realizes, yeah, he gets that sanity comes back temporarily to kind of show him, yeah, I did something wrong. Kind of pivots there. Gets that sanity back, corrects things, implies that he might actually turn himself in, and walks out the door. Like, I don't want to be around you because you just make me realize how bad I am or whatever. It's like, it's such a good character. Like, I like this character because unlike a lot of these other characters that are like, you know, over the top, they're crazy, they're psychos or whatever, they're just, you know, teenagers or whatever. He seems like a proper adult that just got lost somewhere. He got lost somewhere and he got swept up in this world. And because he's a genius, he's incredibly powerful. Just a really cool character to throw in this entire thing. But anyways, yes, episode 56 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Overall, really cool. Let's just dive right into it. Starting off the episode with, yes, the domain expansion, deadly sentencing. To be perfectly honest, I really don't like this kind of stuff. It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick. His entire domain thing is a gimmick. And granted, they all have some sort of thing about them that you can call a gimmick. But this one feels dorky in the idea that, like, it's set to what he says, or what Yuji comes to the conclusion of, is it's set to pacts. Like, everything is set in this domain to the pacts that were made. You know, nobody can harm each other. You know, you can make verbal comments, though. But there's, like, these things that have to be set, these rules that have to be established. You know, he has to lay down the groundwork and explain everything. And then it has this system that plays out. It's really dorky. And again, in a world where you have people that are like doing crazy domain expansions, explosions are happening, volcanic eruptions are happening in the entire city, all this crazy stuff happening. He's like, everybody gets thrown in a courtroom and a judgment is made. The attack is talked out, basically. I liked it. I liked it in the end because of what they did with it and the idea that, yes, he claims, or that at least the system itself claims that, yes, he went to this parlor and he partook in it. And it turns this whole thing where Yuji's afraid that he's going to be, you know, judged for actually playing the game there. But after making his decision and saying that I wanted to go to the bathroom, it turns out that no, the whole thing was just trespassing. He was there trespassing and thus guilty. He called it wrong and he gets guilty. Again, it's kind of dorky, but at the same time, it really works because the aftermath is where it kind of turns into your typical sorcerer battle where, yes, now the judgment is made, it takes something from Yuji, and now they just, like, fight it out without the ability of him being able to control his cursed energy. Now, it is interesting that Higuruma points out that typically it's not taking cursed energy, or the use of cursed energy. It's typically confiscating the cursed techniques. But because he doesn't seem like he has one, it's pulling that from him. So he's, like, kind of shocked by the fact that Yuji is still able to hold up to him when he's not able to use cursed energy anymore, because typically people lose their cursed technique and then they fumble over themselves because they're so used to using that. Whereas, like, yeah, most people, they're not, like, they've gotten so used to it, they got comfortable, I guess, and thus they're not able to kind of, you know, transition very quickly there. But of course, Yuji being very kind of more physically fit, more built around that, he's able to still kind of hold his own, despite the fact that Higuruma is literally dropping a massive mallet on him. Able to extend it everywhere and fling it around. And at some point he was shooting him like a machine gun. That was a bit weird. That part was like a little bit over the top for me. It was a little dorky there, but it was a cool little fight scene there. Until, yes, eventually Yuji thinks of a brilliant concept. Honestly, I thought it was kind of brilliant. Calling for a retrial, which, yes, actually does work. If you don't plead guilty, you're able to do 2 retrials. Which this one was honestly the gut punch. This was honestly the gut punch one because I think I assumed that the retrial would just be, they're going to do it again. Okay, well, make your claims now because we're still talking about, the trespassing of this parlor. No, it brings up a new one. Which is, that doesn't really, in my brain, it doesn't it doesn't make sense, the idea that you would, a retrial for, walking into a parlor or trespassing a parlor would be, okay, now you're on trial for murder. But it was still like a gut punch, the idea that, yes, what's brought to him now is what is deep within him, which is, yes, he caused this mass murder, which, by shock to nobody, Yuji immediately accepts. Yeah, no lie there. I did it. Confiscation, death penalty, dead. Which this apparently activates a separate thing here, which is, I guess the weight of what is actually done here changes the actual penalty. Because before, it just does confiscation, which just takes away their curse technique or energy. But this one specifically goes a step further with death penalty and gives Higuruma the ability to use this Excalibur. So I'm guessing his entire system here has weight to every single one of the judgments. So it's just like, regular court. Depending on what the judgment is, the actual penalty can be greater. Jail for a period of time would be essentially the equivalent to, again, taking a curse technique and taking it for 5 days. Versus, yes, you did something horrible and we're able to execute you on the spot. So it didn't really explain all that stuff, but that's sort of where I'm coming to conclusion of, which may come into play later on when we see him go against potentially other people. But of course, yes, the important thing here is that at the same time this happens, it seems that Higuruma gets a vision of what was in the evidence. Because, as we've seen, the evidence wasn't open. Yuji accepted immediately. What was apparently in the evidence was what actually protected Yuji. That's the weird thing there, because before with the parlor thing, the evidence was, damning to him. It showed him at the exchange counter. Whereas this one, the evidence was actually in favor of Yuji. It explained the fact that, yes, Sukuna is inside of him, and Sukuna was the one that did this, and that he's completely innocent. But again, this is where it gets into him being extremely frustrated. It seems like he's frustrated with what Yuji does. Again, it gets back to his roots. That's really what it kind of opens up the door to. It kind of reminds him where he once was. Now, the whole thing with him talking to the guy about possibly becoming a judge, I really didn't quite get exactly what he was saying there, but it kind of implied the idea that he felt that he was better suited for what he was doing. Again, because it kind of sucks, because if he became a judge, he could have been the one that made all those calls. He could have been the one that could have potentially saved a lot of people, because if they don't have a jury or something like that, as a judge, he would be making the calls. He would be making the final judgments on stuff, but he chose not to. And so there's a side of me that almost feels like he feels regret for not doing that. But I think because he felt that he can find the good in people, he'd be able to find and get to the truth behind things and help people out. But again, he got stuck in the ugliness of things. And I think because he's seen what Yuji was doing, that Yuji wasn't going to accept that he was innocent, I think he's sort of seen a goodness in somebody for once. That he no longer sees. And again, it kind of fixes his view of humanity. And thus, again, at the point of dealing the deadly blow upon Yuji, he pulls back his blade, takes the hit, and falls. It was a really cool segment. I really liked all this stuff. But I think more than anything, and I'm not sure if this will really connect with Yuji, because it's not connecting with him still. In the end, right here, it's not connecting. But I think it sort of kind of pivots his mindset a little bit. What I really like in this little segment right here is somebody with the power of judgment. Higuruma has the power of judgment, and he's a third party. Like he said at the very beginning, this thing will look inside of you and see all the information, doesn't share it with me, but it will kind of, I get this thing right here. This thing is seeing inside of Yuji and seeing everything about him, and it's able to make a judgment. And right here, yes, while it claimed you murdered a bunch of people, and Yuji even accepted it, in the end, the evidence that was portrayed there said that no, he wasn't guilty. And then Higuruma himself says, no, you weren't guilty. You had no control over yourself, and you did not give yourself up to that object to take control. You made no choice here that led to those deaths. Something else did it. You are innocent. So I think it's a good thing to have sort of this third party, again, this judge that has no kind of weight one way or the other, is unbiased, this judge made a call. Through Higuruma, a judgment was made, and it says, Yuji, you're not at fault here. I think it's a good thing for Yuji to hear, but at the same time, Yuji again comes to the conclusion of, no, I'm still guilty because I was too weak. I'm still at fault because I was too weak. Essentially, I gave it up to him. I failed to stop him from taking control and causing this to happen. Anyways, yeah, I like it. But yes, this leads to them sitting down together, making the rule that they can transfer points. Again, claims that he has 2 more points left, one from the judge, one from the prosecutor. He's going to, turn himself in before he walks out the door, saying that he, can't stay with him because he'll likely hate himself more. Again, I think he sees himself in Yuji and doesn't like being around him. The more I'm around you, I realize how much I've fallen, basically. It's, again, really good stuff. I want more of him. It's such a good little segment. I really, really liked it. Did I miss anything? I feel like I kind of skipped forward because I just want to ramble about Higuruma. Such good stuff. But, the domain expansion stuff. At some point, Yuji mentions the fact that they talked to Tengen about domain expansions and said that while this individual in front of him, Higuruma, isn't somebody from the past, it seems like his domain is similar to ones in the past that Tengen was talking about. I'm curious about that. It doesn't imply that Higuruma has been taken over by a sorcerer of the past. All signs point to that he is his current self. But it seems like his domain is similar to something of the past because it's not around a one-hit kill thing. And I like how they kind of explain there where, yes, back in the day, domain expansions was common. Like, sorcerers had it regularly. And that was because they weren't so focused on being like insta-kill abilities. Like, if you get my domain, you die. That's what Higuruma is. And Higuruma is more like back in the day when it was about a concept or, again, founded around packs. It's around this concept here that's easier to kind of grasp and, to teach somebody else. Unlike, again, current time stuff, which is very difficult to pull off because, rightfully so, it's a one-hit kill thing. It was a kind of an interesting little note to kind of add there. I also liked how much they got into Higuruma and how he mastered this. Because again, that was my assumption, was that he awoken the moment that he was in that courtroom. And it could have been like slightly before then. But that implies that he had the ability there, killed the people there, and then moved on from there to really master it. It says that like within 12 days of awakening, he pretty much grew to the point where he can match a grade 1 sorcerer, which again kind of implies that here. And it does seem to center around the idea that his judgment ability, his domain, is able to take, again, the technique from somebody, and then they, being unable to adapt to it, he's able to deal the finishing blow. He even said that with Yuji. Like, normally in this situation, done, this should have been over with already, but he's so, he's so strong, he's able to overcome this even without both things here. Anyways, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's my thoughts on the episode. Really good stuff. Looking forward to the next episode. Hope you guys enjoy this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below. Until next time, y'all take care.